They called it Echoes of the Doomed. A chilling tale whispered only in the darkest corners of the earth. A group of explorers, driven by curiosity and greed, set out on a journey to uncover ancient secrets buried beneath cursed lands. But as the echoes of the past grew louder, so did the shadows that followed. One by one, they fell victim to forces beyond their understanding. This is a story of survival, fear, and the relentless grip of a deadly curse. Elin Norberg stared through the rain-speckled window of her modest apartment, watching as the last slivers of daylight bled away into a sea of charcoal clouds. Stockholm in late October was always like this. Quiet, somber, cold. The kind of cold that seeped into your bones and stayed there, no matter how many layers you wore. On her desk lay a scattered pile of ancient maps, black and white photographs, and handwritten letters in Latin and old Germanic script. A worn, leather-bound notebook, its corners chewed and stained with time, sat open in front of her. On the page was a sketched diagram of what appeared to be a narrow gorge surrounded by jagged mountains, marked with strange runes. She traced the symbols absent-mindedly, her mind drifting. It had been nearly a year since her last expedition, to Anatolia in southern Turkey, a dig site tucked away in an arid valley, known only in myths and forgotten folklore. Something had happened there, something she never spoke of. Her team had unearthed a hidden tomb, but what they found inside hadn't made it into any report. Not officially. A blood-red mural, a depiction of faceless figures bowing before a shapeless entity. And then, the whispers. At night, in the tent, when everyone else had supposedly been asleep. Since then, Elin had retreated from the public eye, ignoring invitations, lectures, and even funding offers. But now, someone, was trying to pull her back in. Knock, knock, knock. 3 knocks. Firm, precise. The kind of knock that wasn't from a neighbor. Elin stood up slowly, wary. She peeked through the peephole. A man in a dark wool coat stood there, holding a slim metal briefcase. His face was partly obscured by the shadows of the hallway. "Dr. Norberg?" he asked when she opened the door just slightly. "That depends," she said cautiously. "I have something that belongs to you, or rather, something you've been looking for." He handed her a sealed envelope, aged and yellowed. No name, no return address. Just a wax seal imprinted with the same runes she had traced moments ago. "Who sent this?" she asked, narrowing her eyes. "I'm just the courier, but if you're interested, the sender is waiting, in person. Tomorrow, 6 p.m., Hotel Fjäderholmarna, room 207. Before she could reply, he turned and disappeared down the hall, leaving her with the envelope and 1,000 thoughts. Back inside, Elin stared at the seal. Her fingers hesitated, then broke it open. Inside was a single piece of parchment, handwritten in an ink that shimmered faintly red under the lamplight. "You've seen its eyes, Elin. You know it's real. We found another one, buried deeper, older than Anatolia. The map is enclosed. We need you. Come alone." And there it was, folded neatly, aged and cracked. The map. Elin's breath caught. It showed a region she instantly recognized. The Daraku Gorge, an uncharted stretch of land located near the borders of Mongolia and Russia. An area whispered about in explorer circles, known for its strange disappearances and impossible rock formations. She felt her pulse quicken, part fear, part thrill. Elin sat back in her chair and closed her eyes. She had promised herself never again. Never another dig. Never another whisper in the dark. But now, it was calling her again, and this time, it might not let her return. The walls of Hotel Fjäderholmarna's lobby were covered in velvet and history. Old paintings of ships and forgotten sailors watched silently as Elin Norberg stepped inside. She clutched the envelope tightly in one hand, its weight far heavier than parchment alone. The receptionist gave her a cautious glance as she stepped into the elevator. She pressed the button for the second floor. Room 207. The hallway was hushed. The dim yellow lights flickered, casting brief shadows that danced along the antique wallpaper. She reached the door and hesitated for a moment. Then she knocked twice. No answer. She knocked again. The door creaked open by itself. A shiver crept down her spine. Inside was a man she hadn't seen in nearly 10 years. Mateo Silva, a Spanish linguist and occult researcher she'd worked with during a failed expedition in the Peruvian Andes. He was older now, beard graying, eyes sunken but alert. Elin, he greeted with a faint smile, as if expecting her all along. "I thought you were dead," she said, unable to hide her shock. "Not yet, but maybe soon." His words were grim, but his voice was calm. On the table between them sat 5 sealed envelopes and an open bottle of vodka. Around him were 4 other people, each familiar, each bearing the same haunted look she remembered from Anatolia. Dr. Samira Othman, the geologist who deciphered the mineral sequences in the tomb walls. Ilya Rozhenko, Russian ex-military turned logistics specialist. Julien Marchand, a French filmmaker obsessed with documenting the unfilmable. And lastly, Kana Akiyama, a Japanese shamanic scholar, pale and silent, her hands covered in faint red ink. "What is this?" Elin asked, heart pounding. Mateo gestured to the maps on the wall. Copies of the Darakul Gorge region, updated satellite overlays, notes in dozens of languages. "It's real, Elin," he said softly. "What we found in Anatolia was only a piece. The real source is here." He pointed to a spot on the map where the mountains formed a spiral. Elin's breath caught. The spiral formation matched a sketch from the tomb mural. Something ancient and conscious had been buried deep beneath the earth, and it was awakening. "I'm not going back," she said, backing away. But Kana spoke, her voice barely a whisper. "You never left." Elin froze. They were all marked. Every one of them had been in Anatolia. Every one of them had experienced the same dreams, the same whispers. And now they were being called again. Mateo handed her one of the envelopes. "Elin, this is your ticket. A helicopter will take us to Ulaanbaatar in 3 days. From there, we head east into the Darakul Gorge. We may not come back." Elin looked down at the envelope. Her name was written in crimson ink. She could still walk away. But the truth clawed at her curiosity, like a beast under her skin. "Why us?" she asked. Julian lit a cigarette and exhaled slowly. "Because we survived once. And the gorge, it remembers." The helicopter roared through the clouds, slicing through a thick curtain of gray that blanketed the Mongolian wilderness. Below them sprawled a land of twisted ridges, winding rivers, and craggy peaks that seemed untouched by time or man. Elin sat between Julian and Dr. Othman, staring silently out the small circular window. The others were equally subdued, each lost in their own thoughts. The sound of the blades above was loud, but beneath that noise, she swore she could hear something else. A hum. No, a whisper, too rhythmic to be wind. Mateo, sitting opposite her, clutched a worn leather-bound journal, his fingers trembling slightly. Kana had her eyes closed in meditation, lips silently mouthing something in Japanese, possibly a prayer. Ilya was the only one who seemed unaffected, cleaning his equipment methodically. After 2 hours, the pilot's voice crackled through the headset. 10 minutes to drop. Prepare for descent. As the helicopter dipped lower, the team caught their first glimpse of the Darakul Gorge. It was far worse and more beautiful than anything they'd imagined. The land split open into a colossal rift, the edges jagged and unnatural, like something had torn it apart from within. Mist oozed from its depths, swirling unnaturally, moving against the wind. In the center of the gorge was the spiral, not a formation of stone or trees. This spiral was etched into the earth, miles wide and ancient, like a sigil drawn by a hand that knew more than mankind ever would. At the center stood a small black spire, rising like a fang from the heart of the wound. Julian raised his camera, but the lens fogged instantly. He cursed, wiped it, and tried again. The footage came back black. No electronic signals, Ilya muttered. Static interference, like Anatolia. They landed on a narrow outcrop half a mile from the spiral. The air here was thin, electric. Aylin felt her skin tingle. As the team unloaded their gear, Kana suddenly stopped and pointed to the far ridge. There stood a figure, tall, unmoving, cloaked in tattered robes. Julian raised his camera. Gone. No one spoke for a moment. Then Matteo whispered, "The Guardian." "What?" Elin asked, unsettled. "There's always something watching," he said. "That's how this works." They hiked the remaining distance in silence, save for the crunch of boots on Frost and Julian's occasional frustrated mutterings at his equipment. As they neared the spiral's edge, Ellen froze. There was writing, not carved into rock, but into the air itself. Floating glyphs shimmered and twisted in a language she had seen once before. On the tomb walls in Anatolia, Kana stepped forward, speaking softly. The glyphs responded, aligning themselves, glowing briefly before fading. Dr. Othman gasped. "She opened it," she whispered. The ground beneath them rumbled, and a deep, resonating sound echoed from the spiral's center, like a horn underwater. Elin's vision blurred. Then she saw faces in the mist. Thousands of them, mouths open, screaming. The team set up camp just beyond the spiral's edge. No one said much. The air felt heavier the moment the sun dipped below the horizon. The mist thickened unnaturally, curling around their tents like silent snakes. The temperature dropped by 20 degrees within minutes. Julian fiddled with his drone, trying to get a signal. No GPS, no satellite link, nothing. "We need eyes in the air," said Aylin. "We can't just wander into that spiral blind." Kana sat cross-legged near the fire, eyes closed, chanting softly. Dr. Othman took notes while glancing at the sky, visibly unsettled by the stars, or lack thereof. "Something's wrong," she whispered. "The constellations are not right." "They've shifted," said Matteo without looking up from his journal. "They always do in places like this." Ilya stood on the ridge, night vision goggles scanning the gorge. Then the screaming started. Short, human. Julian bolted upright. "That was a voice." "No one's out there," Elin muttered. They all rushed to the edge of camp. Silence. Just mist and shadow. Then Ilya spotted something. Movement. He motioned everyone to stay low. Through the goggles, he could make out a dark figure walking along the spiral path. Toward the center. "Who the hell is that?" Julian hissed. "No one left the camp," Aylin said. "We did a head count an hour ago." But Matteo had gone quiet. His tent flap hung open. He was gone. They followed the tracks, faint but visible, curving into the spiral. The deeper they went, the more warped the air became. Whispers slithered past their ears. Some in languages no one knew, others in voices they recognized. Matteo's, Alan's father, a childhood friend long dead. Then they saw him. Matteo stood in the center of a broken stone circle, surrounded by ancient carvings glowing faint red. His eyes were open, but blank. Blood ran from his nose, ears, and mouth. His arms were raised as if caught mid-speech. Kana rushed forward, but Julian grabbed her back. "Something's wrong. Look at his shadow." There wasn't one. Matteo's body swayed slightly and collapsed. His skin had turned ash gray. His face was contorted in an expression of ecstasy and terror all at once. Elin knelt beside him. His pulse was gone. His eyes stared upward, locked on some invisible truth. A glyph was carved into his chest, from the inside out. Dr. Othman stumbled backward. He didn't do that to himself. Something pulled it through. Ilya scanned the area again, but whatever was there was already gone. Elin spoke slowly. "We can't go further yet. We need to understand what that spiral is." Kana finally opened her mouth. "It's a gate," she said, voice hollow. But not to one place. It's connected to many. When he stepped in, something stepped out. Julian turned off his camera. Morning never came. They waited through what should have been dawn, but the mist never lifted. Their watches stopped ticking around the same time. 03:17 a.m. Even the digital clocks on their cameras froze. Julian tapped his screen. This thing still shows 3/17. I've reset it 5 times. Dr. Rothman looked up from her notebook. Time is unstable here. It's not just malfunctioning electronics. It's a full spatial time shift. Elin turned to Kana. Can you feel anything? Kana closed her eyes and reached her hand out into the mist. There are layers, she whispered. Like membranes. Every few steps we pass through something. Different realities, asked Julian. Or fractures in one, Kana replied. They decided to descend further into the spiral, just 50 meters this time. Elin insisted on a safety protocol. Physical tethers. Each team member tied a thick rope to the person behind and ahead, forming a human chain. It didn't help. After walking for what felt like 20 minutes, they reached a point where everything repeated. Julian pointed at a stone arch. Didn't we just pass that? They had, again and again. 5 loops later, they tried something new. Kana marked the ground with sacred powder. It vanished the second they turned their backs. Elin, Ilya said, panting, I think we're stuck in a loop. No, Kana said. We're not looping. We're drifting. The spiral isn't a path. It's a current. The mist around them shifted. It grew darker, denser. Shapes floated inside it. Half-seen silhouettes, some large, some crawling. Julian aimed his camera into the mist. Through the lens, they could see things the eye could not. Buildings, people, fires burning backward, creatures watching them through holes in time. Then they heard music. A violin, soft, heart-wrenching, from somewhere ahead. Matteo? Elin whispered. She broke the line, running forward. Julien and Ilya cursed and ran after her, pulling the others behind. They entered a clearing in the spiral, an impossible space where the mist opened like a stage. At its center stood a man in a tattered expedition jacket, playing a violin made of bone. Kana gasped. That's Dr. Weissman, from the 1971 expedition. Weissman looked up, but his eyes were hollow. Not dead, not alive. Anchored. I was the first to see the heart, he said. The first to hear its song. What song? Elin asked. Weissman turned his head, slowly, unnaturally. It calls to those who've lost something, and in return, it takes. Suddenly, a scream. Julian turned around. Dr. Rothman was gone, only her tether remained, sliced clean. Ilya scanned frantically. She was right behind me. A shadow crawled across the far edge of the mist, dragging something heavy. Kana stepped forward, trembling. We must leave this fold. We're not protected here. The mist began collapsing inward. They grabbed each other and ran. The spiral twisted beneath their feet like moving stone. Whispers turned into cries, names, regrets, curses, and promises. Back at base camp, they stumbled into their tents, gasping. Only 5 remained. Kana, her voice ragged. This spiral is alive, and it's hungry. The silence after Othman's disappearance was unbearable. Ilya sat outside his tent, head in hands, mumbling prayers in Russian. Julien paced the perimeter with a flashlight, though the batteries were half dead. Kana sat cross-legged, eyes closed, muttering chants in a language Elin didn't recognize. Elin, meanwhile, clutched Matteo's journal, the one they'd recovered back at the gorge wall. Its pages had begun to change. Some words had rearranged themselves. Others had faded entirely. Page 34 now read, "The spiral feeds on memory. If you forget yourself, it grows stronger. If you remember, it watches." Elin turned to Kana. "Can this thing rewrite what we know?" Kana opened her eyes slowly. "It doesn't rewrite. It erodes." That night, none of them slept. The mist crawled into their tents like fingers. Time passed in wrong directions. At one point, Ilya looked at his watch and said it was 2:42 p.m. 5 minutes later, it blinked 11:09 a.m. At dawn, or what they assumed was dawn, they made a plan. "We move forward," Eileen said. "We stay tethered, we don't split, and we speak every 10 steps." They descended again into the spiral, deeper than ever. At first, the ground was stone, but after an hour, it softened. Moss grew in strange spirals. Trees began appearing, twisted, pale things with no leaves and roots that pulsed like arteries. Then the voices returned. This time, they whispered directly into their minds. Eileen heard her sister, who had died 10 years ago. Ilya heard his mother calling his name. Kana heard nothing, but her eyes widened. "We're walking into a memory storm," she said. "The spiral is pulling from us now. It's not passive anymore." Suddenly, Julian screamed. The team turned to see him standing frozen. His face was pale, his eyes wide in horror. "Behind me," he whispered. "Tell me you see it." There was nothing there, but Julian began backing up, trembling. "It's standing where Othman vanished. It has no face. It's watching me. No one else sees anything," Eileen said calmly. "Julian, listen to me. It's trying to isolate you." Julian began to cry. I can't block it out. It's speaking, inside me." He stumbled back, hitting a root. Eileen lunged forward to grab him, but missed. Julian fell. The ground opened. A crack that hadn't been there before swallowed him whole. They ran to the spot, but it was too late. Julian was gone. Only a smear of blood on a stone root remained. The air vibrated like a violin string just struck. Kana whispered. That wasn't a creature. That was the spiral itself. After Julian's disappearance, the group's morale was shattered. Eileen's eyes, once fierce and resolute, now carried the weight of hopelessness. Ilya, Kana, and Eileen knew that every step deeper into the gorge was a step closer to the unknown, possibly death. Yet something strange happened. As they moved forward, the harsh landscape of twisted trees and pulsating roots suddenly gave way to a vast chamber filled with shimmering water. The water was so still it acted like a mirror, reflecting not only their faces, but scenes from their pasts. Kana whispered, "The spiral feeds on memory, but it also creates illusions to trap the mind." Eileen approached the water's edge and saw her childhood home perfectly reflected. She felt the warmth of her mother's embrace again, so real she almost reached out. Suddenly, Ilya gasped and stepped back. His reflection was distorted, his face twisted into a mask of fear. The water began to ripple violently. The air in the chamber turned cold. The voices returned, louder now, chanting in unison, echoing off the stone walls. "It's the mirror chamber," Kana said, voice trembling. "If we lose ourselves here, we'll never leave." Eileen shook her head. "We have to remember who we are. Our memories are our weapons." The chamber seemed endless. They moved slowly, feeling eyes watching them from every shadow. Then came the first attack. From the water's surface, ghostly hands emerged, clawing and reaching. Kana barely dodged as a hand grazed her arm, leaving a cold burn. Ilya threw a rock into the water. The hands vanished, but the reflection changed, showing the team trapped, imprisoned in stone. Eileen realized the chamber was trying to trap them inside their own fears. They pressed forward, chanting their own names, their reasons for living, their truths. The water's reflection flickered between reality and nightmare. Suddenly, the floor beneath them trembled. A fissure opened. Kana cried out, "It's not an exit, it's a trap!" The fissure glowed with eerie blue light. Tendrils of mist reached out like serpents. Ilya grabbed Eileen's hand. "Run!" They sprinted, dodging grasping shadows. As they cleared the chamber, Eileen looked back once more. The mirror chamber rippled and then sealed itself shut, like it had never existed. They were left with one terrifying truth. In the gorge, even hope could be a lie. Exhausted and shaken by the mirror chamber, the trio, Elin, Ilya, and Kana, pressed on deeper into the gorge. The eerie glow from the fissure had faded, but a heavy silence replaced it, as if the gorge itself was holding its breath. They soon stumbled upon ancient ruins, half buried beneath vines and moss. Massive stone pillars carved with indecipherable runes surrounded a crumbling temple entrance. Kana brushed the dirt away from one inscription. These symbols, they speak of a lost civilization that once worshipped the shadow spirit, the force behind the spiral. Ilya shivered. If this spirit controls the gorge, maybe it's what's killing us. Elin knelt before the temple steps. We have to find out the truth here. Whatever this place holds might be our only hope. Inside, the air was thick with dust and decay. Broken statues of humanoid figures with elongated limbs and blank faces stood guard. The floor was littered with bones, some human, some animal. Kana's voice was barely a whisper. This place, it's a tomb for those who failed the spiral. Suddenly, the faintest whispering echoed through the hall. At first, it was unintelligible, soft like a breeze through leaves. But then, the voices grew clearer, calling out names, pleading, warning. Elin's heart pounded. It's them, the lost souls. They're trapped here. The team tried to listen, to understand the warnings, but the voices swirled and twisted into a haunting melody. Each name they heard brought a chilling realization. These were previous explorers who had entered the gorge and never returned. Ilya found a faded journal among the debris. Its pages were brittle but contained detailed notes about rituals, sacrifices, and a prophecy of the chosen ones who would end the curse. Kana's eyes widened. If this prophecy is true, maybe one of us is meant to stop the spiral. Suddenly, the ground trembled violently. Dust rained from the ceiling and the temple began to collapse. "We need to get out, now!" Elin shouted. As they fled, a shadowy figure appeared at the temple's entrance. Tall, cloaked in darkness, its face hidden. It raised a hand, and a wave of cold swept over them. Kana stumbled and fell, clutching her chest, gasping for breath. Elin grabbed her. "Stay with us, Kana. Don't let it take you." The shadow hissed, its voice like grinding stone. "The spiral demands its due, but your time is not yet come." With a final roar, the shadow vanished as suddenly as it appeared. The trio escaped the ruins, hearts pounding, lungs burning, but alive. Outside, the gorge seemed quieter, almost watchful. Elin looked at her friends. "We're closer to the truth, and to the end." After their harrowing escape from the ancient ruins, Elin, Ilya, and Kana climbed out of the gorge onto a vast plateau shrouded in thick, swirling mist. The air was cold and damp, and visibility was limited to only a few meters ahead. It felt as though the mist itself was alive, crawling and whispering secrets. "We need to find shelter," Elin said, scanning the gray-white haze. "We can't risk spending the night exposed here." Ilya nodded. There was a marker on the old map, something about an abandoned outpost near the plateau's edge. The three trekked carefully, their footsteps muffled by the mist. Every sound seemed amplified, a twig snapping, distant echoes, faint murmurs carried on the wind. The mist played tricks on their eyes. Shapes appeared and vanished, shadows flickered in the corner of their vision. Kana's voice trembled. "Do you feel it? Like something's watching us?" Suddenly, from the fog, a figure emerged, a gaunt man, eyes hollow and skin pale as death. He wore tattered clothes soaked by the cold dampness. "Who are you?" Elin demanded, stepping forward cautiously. The man didn't speak. Instead, he pointed toward a dark thicket near the plateau's edge, then vanished as if swallowed by the mist. Against better judgment, they followed. At the thicket, they found remnants of a campfire and scattered belongings, old, rusted tools, torn fabric, and a leather-bound notebook. Kana picked it up, flipping through yellowed pages filled with frantic scrawls and cryptic symbols. "This belonged to another group," she whispered, her eyes wide with dread. They tried to cross the plateau, but something forced them back. The notebook detailed strange phenomena, sudden storms, voices calling from the mist, and sightings of shadowy figures that moved against the wind. Most chilling was a passage describing a terrible choice, a sacrifice demanded by the spirit of the plateau to pass safely. Elin clenched her fists. "We can't turn back now, but we must stay vigilant." As night fell, the mist thickened, swallowing the stars. They set up a makeshift shelter, but sleep was uneasy. Each crackle of the fire and every whisper of the wind felt like a warning. Hours later, a chilling scream shattered the silence. Ilya bolted upright, shining his flashlight into the fog. Kana was gone. Panic surged through Elin's veins. "Kana, where are you?" From the swirling mist, Kana's faint voice answered, trembling and distant. "Help!" "I'm here." Elin and Ilya dashed toward the sound, their hearts pounding. The mist seemed to resist them, shifting and thickening, obscuring their path. Finally, they found Kana near a gnarled tree, trembling but alive. "What happened?" Elin asked. Kana pointed behind her. "Something touched me. It wasn't human. It whispered my name." Ilya swallowed hard. "We're not alone here. Whatever haunts this plateau, it's real. And it's hungry, determined to survive." The team gathered their strength, ready to face the unseen terrors of the misty plateau and the dark secrets it guarded. The dawn broke sluggishly through the thick veil of mist that cloaked the plateau. The cold bit sharply at their skin, and the grey world around them seemed to hold its breath. Elin, Ilya, and Kana packed their sparse belongings and prepared to leave the abandoned outpost where they had spent a restless night. The outpost was little more than a crumbling stone shelter, long forgotten by time and forgotten by those who once manned it. Rusty nails stuck out of rotting wooden beams, and the cold floor was strewn with debris. Broken tools, scraps of cloth, and bones bleached by sun and wind. Kana held the leather-bound notebook tightly, feeling the weight of the unknown history it carried. "These writings, they speak of a curse," she said quietly. "A darkness that traps the souls of anyone who dares to cross this plateau." Elin shivered, not just from the cold. "We have to find a way through. We can't let fear stop us." Ilya, ever the skeptic, scanned the horizon. "The mist is thinning. If we follow the ridge east, maybe we'll find a path down before the sun sets." They set off, the notebook guiding their steps. But the plateau was a maze of fog and shadow, and every step seemed to echo with distant whispers. Voices from the past, or perhaps the voices of those who had perished here. Hours later, the mist thickened again, and the world became a blur of grey. Suddenly, a low, guttural sound rose from the ground beneath their feet, a sound that sent chills deep into their bones. Elin stopped cold. "Did you hear that?" Kana nodded, eyes wide. "It's coming from the earth." The ground trembled. Suddenly, cracks splintered the rocky surface around them, and from the fissures, dark shapes emerged, shadowy figures with hollow eyes and twisted forms. They moved slowly but with an unnatural grace, circling the trio. Ilya raised his flashlight, its beam trembling. "We're not alone." Elin grabbed a jagged piece of rock and brandished it defensively. "Back away. We don't want to fight, but we will if we must." The figures whispered in a language none of them understood, the words like venom dripping into the air. One shadow lunged forward, its cold hand brushing Elin's arm. A searing pain shot through her, and darkness clawed at her vision. She fell to her knees, gasping. Ilya and Kana tried to pull her back, but the shadows closed in. Suddenly, a piercing scream cut through the air, shattering the spell. The figures recoiled, dissolving into the mist like smoke. Kana helped Elin to her feet. "You're lucky. Something here still protects us." But the victory was fragile. Elin's arm burned with an unnatural fever, and she knew the curse had marked her. As they continued, the notebook's warnings echoed louder in their minds. The plateau demanded sacrifices, and the shadows would not rest until they had their due. The mist continued to cling to their clothes as Elin, Ilya, and Kana descended from the plateau toward the next destination marked in the notebook. A sunken village hidden beneath the surface of a still lake. According to the faded pages, this village had vanished overnight centuries ago, swallowed by water and shadow, leaving only whispered legends behind. The forest thickened, and the sound of their footsteps was swallowed by the dense underbrush. The lake appeared suddenly through the trees, a vast, mirror-like surface perfectly still, reflecting a sky heavy with clouds. No birds sang, no insects buzzed. The silence was complete and unnerving. Kana broke the silence. The villagers were said to have angered a powerful spirit, and it claimed them all. Ilya crouched by the lake's edge, dipping his hand into the frigid water. If the village is beneath, maybe we can find something underwater, something that explains what happened. Elan nodded, her gaze fixed on the dark water. We need to be careful. The notebook warns that the water holds secrets and dangers. They donned their gear and prepared to dive. The lake's cold bit immediately, a chill that seemed to reach beyond flesh and bone. As Elin plunged beneath the surface, the world transformed into an eerie silence, interrupted only by the rush of water. Below, the ruins of the village lay frozen in time. Roofs collapsed, walls crumbled, and strange shapes hovered in the water. Then, shadows moved, vague figures drifting among the ruins, their faces obscured but eyes glowing faintly. Elin surfaced, gasping. There are people down there, or what's left of them. Kana shuddered. The curse doesn't end with the plateau. It follows them here. Suddenly, bubbles erupted from the depths, and a ghostly hand reached out toward Elin's leg. She kicked hard, breaking free as the water seemed to pulse with malevolence. Back on shore, they gathered breathlessly. The lake's reflection rippled, distorting into twisted faces of the lost villagers, their mouths open in silent screams. Ilya swallowed hard. We're being watched. As night fell, strange lights flickered beneath the water's surface, and the haunting silence of the lake whispered warnings that would chill the bravest heart. The following morning, the fog lingered thick over the lake, casting ghostly shapes on the water's surface. The team, still shaken from the previous day's dive, debated their next move. We can't ignore what we saw, Elin said firmly, her voice steady despite the unease. There's something beneath the water, something alive, or undead. Kana nodded. We need to explore deeper, but carefully. Maybe if we understand the spirit's anger, we can appease it. Ilya consulted the notebook again, tracing his finger over the ancient script. The villagers didn't just vanish. They were trapped in some kind of curse. We have to find how to break it. Equipped with underwater cameras and protective gear, they planned another dive, this time deeper into the submerged ruins. As they descended, the eerie silence enveloped them once more. The water seemed colder, heavier, pressing against their lungs. Suddenly, a whisper echoed through the water, faint but unmistakable. A woman's voice, desperate and pleading. Help us, free us. Elin's heart pounded. She motioned for her team to follow her toward the sound. Through the murky water, they reached what looked like an ancient altar, covered in strange runes glowing faintly. Kana traced the symbols with her gloved hand. This must be the source of the curse. Suddenly, the water churned violently. Shadowy figures emerged from the ruins, their faces twisted in sorrow and rage. The spirits surrounded them, blocking the way back. Ilya's breathing grew rapid, the fear setting in. We have to do something, now. Elin, recalling the notebook's notes, began to chant the ancient words aloud. The spirits writhed, their glowing eyes flickering. Slowly, the violent energy began to dissipate. One by one, the shadows faded, releasing a wave of calm over the lake. Emerging from the water, the team gasped, the weight of the curse lifting. But their relief was tempered by the realization this victory came at a cost. The expedition had now truly entered a realm where the living and the dead were intertwined. The sun rose high as the team emerged from the lake, shaken but alive. The mysterious curse lifted, at least for now. But their journey was far from over. According to the old notebook, the source of the curse was connected not only to the submerged village, but also to the dense forest that surrounded the gorge. Eileen gathered the group around a campfire, her eyes scanning the tree line. "This forest holds secrets older than the village itself," she said. "If we want to understand what happened here, we need to venture inside." The forest was thick and oppressive, the canopy blotting out much of the daylight. Twisted trees, some blackened and dead, stood like sentinels guarding ancient secrets. The air was heavy, filled with a constant low murmur, like 1,000 whispered voices just beyond comprehension. As they pressed deeper, Kana noticed strange symbols carved into the bark of the trees. Runes similar to those they had seen underwater, glowing faintly in the dim light. "Someone or something marked this place long ago," Kana murmured. Night began to fall quickly. The shadows lengthened, and the whispers grew louder, almost urgent. The team set up camp, but sleep came uneasily. Suddenly, Ilya awoke with a start, eyes wide in terror. "Did you hear that?" he whispered. "Footsteps, but no one's there." Eileen tried to calm him, but the unease was contagious. The forest seemed alive, watching. Later, Eileen wandered alone near the edge of the camp. The whispers beckoned her, soft and enticing. Drawn by a force she couldn't resist, she followed the voices deeper into the woods. She found herself before an ancient stone altar covered in moss and roots. On it lay a cracked wooden box. Opening it revealed a faded journal, its pages brittle with age. The journal belonged to a villager who had tried to end the curse centuries ago. The last entry spoke of a ritual to pacify the spirits by offering a sacrifice, a willing soul to bind the darkness. Eileen's heart pounded. If they wanted to survive, they had to confront the forest's curse head-on. But the cost, the price demanded by the spirits, was still unknown and terrifying. Eileen returned to camp, her face pale and eyes heavy with the weight of what she had discovered. The journal's chilling message haunted her mind. A sacrifice was needed to end the curse. But who among them would be willing or chosen to pay such a terrible price? The team gathered around the fire, tension thick in the air. Eileen shared the journal's secrets, explaining the ancient ritual and the grim necessity it implied. A heavy silence followed. The forest's whispers seemed to grow louder, pressing in from all sides. Kai, ever the pragmatist, broke the silence. "If we don't do this, none of us will make it out alive," he said grimly. "I won't let anyone die for this," Kana protested, tears glistening in her eyes. "There has to be another way." "But the spirits demand balance," Eileen said. "If we don't offer a willing soul, the curse will consume us all." The group debated late into the night. Fear, desperation, and loyalty battled within each heart. Eileen watched her friends struggle, knowing that the decision would change everything. Then, from the shadows, a quiet voice spoke. "I will do it," Ilya said softly, stepping forward. Gasps rippled through the group. "No, Ilya, don't," Kana cried. But Ilya's eyes were resolute. "I've seen what this curse does. I want to protect you all." Eileen's heart ached, torn between hope and dread. The dawn brought a solemn calm. Preparations began for the ritual at the ancient altar. But as they approached the stone platform, something shifted in the air. The whispers turned to screams. The forest was waking. As the team approached the ancient altar, the atmosphere grew thick with tension. The forest seemed to pulse with a sinister energy, the once faint whispers, now a deafening chorus of screams and cries. The trees trembled, and the ground beneath their feet vibrated as if the earth itself were awakening. Eileen stood beside Ilya, her heart pounding. She could feel the spirit's anger rising, a force far beyond their understanding. The others formed a circle around the altar, clutching hands tightly, preparing for the ritual. Ilya stepped forward, the weight of the moment pressing heavily on him. He began to recite the incantation from the journal, his voice steady but filled with resolve. Suddenly, the wind howled through the trees, and shadows flickered wildly among the branches. A dark mist seeped from the altar, swirling upward like a living entity. The forest's wrath was no longer silent. It was here, manifesting before their eyes. Kai raised his voice, shouting over the chaos. "Hold the circle! Don't let the fear break us!" The groups combined will seem to push back against the darkness, the ritual's power binding the spirits slowly but surely. Ilya's voice grew stronger with every word, the ancient language filling the clearing with an otherworldly resonance. Then, as the final words left his lips, a blinding light erupted from the altar, piercing the shadows and silencing the forest's cries. The mist dissipated, the trees stilled, and an eerie calm settled over the woods. Elin exhaled deeply, tears streaming down her face. The curse had been lifted, at last. But as they turned to leave, a faint whisper lingered, softer than before, almost a promise. "We will remember." The dawn broke gently over the whispering woods, casting soft golden light over the camp. The once menacing forest now felt peaceful, almost welcoming. The air was clear, the heavy weight of the curse lifted, yet an unspoken sorrow lingered among the team. Elin stood by the riverbank, watching the water flow silently. The journey had taken so much. Friends lost, fears faced, and sacrifices made. She ran her fingers through the cool water, trying to grasp the reality of their survival. Kai sat nearby, cleaning his gear in a calm, almost meditative way. The pragmatic leader, usually so unyielding, seemed quieter now, his usual confidence tempered by the recent horrors. Kana was writing in her notebook, documenting every moment, every discovery, every loss. Her hands trembled slightly, the weight of the expedition etched on her face. Ilya, the brave soul who had made the ultimate sacrifice, was gone, but his memory burned brightly in their hearts. They had made it through, but the cost was profound. As the team packed their belongings, Elin gathered them together one last time. "We faced darkness and survived," she said quietly. "But we must remember, this journey has changed us forever." The forest behind them whispered softly, a gentle farewell. They stepped forward toward a future uncertain but filled with hope. After leaving the whispering woods behind, the team arrived at the village of elders, a remote settlement nestled in the shadow of towering mountain. The village was steeped in history, its ancient stone buildings covered in moss and vines, whispering tales of generations long gone. Aileen felt a chill as they entered the village square. The elders, wise and weathered, greeted them with somber eyes and knowing nods. The villagers had heard the echoes of the forest's curse and its eventual lifting. Kai approached the village chief, an old man with piercing blue eyes. "We have freed the spirits from their torment," Kai said, "but the scars remain." The chief nodded slowly. "The forest is alive with memories," he said. "You have done well to bring peace, but the past will always linger here." Kana carefully documented the villagers' stories, their legends of the spirits and the ancient battles fought to contain them. Each tale added pieces to the puzzle of the forest's dark history. That night, as the team rested, Ilin sat by the fire, pondering the weight of their journey. The echoes of the past were strong, but they had forged a new path forward. As the team left the village of elders behind, they journeyed toward the towering Mount Valora, a peak shrouded in mist and legend. According to local folklore, deep within the mountain's ancient ruins lay a relic said to possess the power to permanently seal the dark forces that had plagued the Whispering Woods. Aelin led the group with determination, her heart heavy with the memories of those they had lost. The ruins appeared as a sprawling labyrinth of crumbling stone walls and faded carvings, half swallowed by creeping vines and moss. The air was thick with a strange energy, an eerie silence that seemed to watch their every step. Kai studied the ancient symbols etched into the walls, deciphering warnings left by the ancestors. "This relic," he said, "is more than a key. It's a beacon. It draws the darkness, but also holds the power to banish it." Kana carefully documented their progress, her eyes scanning every surface for clues. "We must find it before the darkness regains strength," she urged. "The fate of the forest, and maybe the world, depends on us." As they ventured deeper into the ruins, the shadows grew longer, and the feeling of being watched intensified. Strange whispers echoed through the halls, sometimes sounding like cries for help, other times like sinister laughter. Suddenly, the ground beneath them trembled. A hidden trap sprung, sending a cascade of stones crashing down the corridor. The team barely escaped, shaken but undeterred. Elin knew that the relic was close. It called to her, a faint pulse in the darkness, a promise of hope amid the despair. But the journey was far from over. Each step forward revealed new dangers and memories best left forgotten. The line between friend and foe blurred as the forest's ancient curse fought to protect its secrets. In the heart of Mount Valora, the team prepared for a final confrontation with the darkness that had haunted them since the beginning. The air grew colder and heavier as the team descended into the heart of Mount Valora. The entrance to the Chamber of Shadows loomed before them, a massive stone doorway carved with cryptic symbols that seemed to pulse with a dark energy. Aileen placed her hand on the cold surface, feeling a faint vibration beneath her palm. "This is it," she whispered. "The place where the relic lies." Kai scanned the carvings, deciphering warnings of a guardian spirit bound to protect the relic at all costs. "We must be cautious," he warned. "One wrong step could awaken something far worse than the darkness we've faced." The group lit their torches and stepped inside. The chamber stretched into a vast cavern, its walls adorned with murals depicting battles between light and shadow. The flickering flames cast eerie shapes that danced on the stone. As they moved deeper, a chilling voice echoed through the chamber. "Who dares enter my domain?" it hissed. The shadows began to shift and coalesce, forming a towering figure cloaked in darkness. Its eyes glowed with malevolent fire as it advanced toward them. Elin raised her staff, ready to face the guardian. "We come to end this curse," she declared. A fierce battle ensued, the guardian's attacks relentless and brutal. The team fought valiantly, relying on their combined strength and resolve. Kana's knowledge of ancient rites allowed them to weaken the Guardian's power. With a final, desperate strike, Aelin shattered the Guardian's form, releasing a wave of light that illuminated the chamber. The darkness retreated, and the relic, an ornate crystal pulsating with radiant energy, rested on a pedestal at the chamber's center. The team breathed a collective sigh of relief. Their mission was nearly complete, but the true test of their courage and unity lay ahead. With the relic finally in their possession, the team gathered around the glowing crystal, feeling its radiant warmth push back the lingering shadows. Elin began chanting the ancient incantation she had learned from the elders, her voice steady despite the heavy burden resting on her shoulders. The chamber trembled as the relic pulsed brighter, casting light that seemed to breathe life back into the stone walls. The oppressive darkness that had haunted the mountain for centuries began to unravel, threads of shadow dissolving into thin air. But as the ritual progressed, a sudden jolt shook the ground. The darkness fought back, surging in a desperate attempt to reclaim its hold. The team stood firm, united by the memories of those they had lost, and the hope for a future free of fear. Kai stepped forward, placing his hands on the relic. Channeling all his energy, he amplified Elin's chant, weaving their strength into a shield of light. The shadows shrieked, their forms breaking apart like smoke in the wind. Finally, with a blinding flash, the curse shattered. The mountain exhaled a breath of relief, and the forest beyond seemed to awaken, vibrant and alive. As the team emerged from the ruins, the sun broke through the clouds, bathing the landscape in golden light. Though scarred by loss, their hearts brimmed with hope. The whispering woods would heal, and the darkness that had claimed so many lives would be remembered only as a shadow of the past. Together, they had unraveled the curse and forged a new beginning. The dawn after the curse's breaking felt surreal. The whispering woods, once shrouded in oppressive darkness, now bloomed with life. Flowers of every color unfurled their petals, and the air was filled with the songs of birds that had long been silent. The team gathered at the edge of the forest, reflecting on the harrowing journey they had survived. Though many had been lost, their sacrifice had saved the countless lives that would thrive in this renewed land. Elin knelt, planting a young sapling near the entrance of the Chamber of Shadows. "This tree is a symbol of hope," she said softly, a reminder that even in the darkest places, life can begin anew. Kai added, "We have to protect this place now, and ensure the knowledge of the curse and its defeat is passed down." The team agreed to establish a foundation dedicated to preserving the history and safeguarding the forest from future threats. As the sun climbed higher, they shared stories, laughter, and tears, united by the bond forged through their ordeal. Though their expedition had ended, a new chapter was beginning, one of healing, resilience, and the promise of a brighter future. Weeks had passed since the curse was broken, and the team had returned to civilization. Yet the shadow of the Whispering Woods still lingered in their minds. They decided to document everything, the history, the journey, the sacrifices, to prevent such darkness from ever rising again. The new Foundation's archive room was filled with ancient manuscripts, relics recovered from the mountain, and detailed notes from the expedition. Aelin, Kai, and the others spent hours cross-referencing legends with their own experiences, uncovering patterns they hadn't noticed before. One discovery startled them, a series of carvings depicting an even older curse, one intertwined with the origins of the Whispering Woods. It spoke of a guardian spirit, betrayed and bound by those who feared its power. Aelin's voice trembled as she read aloud. "The curse is cyclical. It fades, but never truly dies. Only when the guardian is freed can the woods live in peace." The revelation was chilling. Their battle might have ended the current curse, but the true story, and danger, was far from over. Kai clenched his fists. "We need to find this guardian. It's the key to lasting peace." The team nodded, ready to face whatever lay ahead. With the newfound knowledge of the guardian spirit, the team set out to trace its origins. Ancient maps and cryptic carvings pointed them to forgotten ruins, high in the misty highlands. A place untouched by time. The journey was arduous. The terrain was steep and treacherous, with thick fog that obscured their path. Strange whispers echoed through the valleys, unsettling even the most steadfast members of the group. Aelin led with determination, feeling a strange connection to the land. "The guardian is near," she said, her voice steady despite the eerie silence. Kai followed, scanning their surroundings for any sign of danger. The ruins finally came into view. Crumbling stone pillars covered in moss, faded murals depicting battles between humans and spirits. As they stepped inside, a sudden chill ran down their spines. The air felt heavy, almost alive. Kai's flashlight flickered and shadows danced on the walls as if the ruins themselves were watching. Deeper within, they found a sealed chamber marked with the symbol of the guardian, a majestic stag entwined with vines. Aelin traced the symbol gently. "This is it. The key to the curse lies here." Suddenly, the ground trembled. From the shadows, a presence emerged, neither entirely human nor spirit. The guardian had awakened. The guardian spirit's eyes glowed with an ethereal light, illuminating the shadowy chamber. It spoke in a voice both powerful and sorrowful, echoing through the ruins like the wind through ancient trees. "You who have come seeking peace, hear my tale," the guardian intoned. "Bound by betrayal and cursed by fear, I've watched over these woods for centuries, trapped between worlds." Aelin stepped forward, heart pounding. "We broke the curse that plagued the land, but we sense a deeper pain. What must we do to free you?" The guardian's gaze softened. "To break my bonds, You must restore the sacred balance. The forest, the spirits, and humankind must coexist in harmony. Only then can true peace flourish. Kai asked, "How can we achieve this balance? What is required?" The guardian extended a shimmering hand, revealing a glowing seed. "Plant this seed in the heart of the forest. Tend to it with care, for it holds the essence of life and renewal. But beware. Forces still seek to keep darkness alive." With renewed purpose, the team vowed to protect the seed and fulfill the guardian's wishes, beginning a new chapter in the forest's ancient story. As the team carefully made their way deeper into the forest, the atmosphere grew thick with an uneasy silence. The ancient trees loomed overhead, their branches twisting like gnarled hands, blocking out the pale sunlight. Aelin clutched the glowing seed tightly, feeling its warmth pulsate like a heartbeat. "This place, it feels alive, but it's watching us." Kai scanned the surroundings with a mix of suspicion and awe. Every shadow here seems to whisper secrets. We're not alone. Suddenly, the ground beneath their feet trembled. From the depths of the forest, ghostly figures emerged, the restless spirits of those who had once tried to disturb the sacred balance. Their hollow eyes bore into the living, filled with anguish and regret. One spirit, a woman draped in tattered robes, stepped forward and spoke in a voice that echoed like the wind. "You carry the hope of renewal, but beware, the past's darkness clings to this land." Aelin bowed respectfully. "We seek only to heal, to restore what was lost." The spirits murmured, their voices weaving through the trees like a haunting melody. The forest itself seemed to breathe with anticipation, a fragile moment between despair and hope. Kai tightened his grip on his flashlight. "We move forward. No matter the shadows, we carry the light." The team reached a clearing deep within the forest where the trees stood in a perfect circle. The air was thick with an ancient energy that made their skin prickle. Aelin held the glowing seed close. This must be the place the Guardian spoke of, the heart where we must plant the seed. As they stepped into the circle, a sudden chill swept over them. Whispering voices filled the air, speaking in tongues long forgotten. From the shadows, ethereal forms materialized. Spirits of the forest, protectors of the sacred balance. Their translucent bodies shimmered with green and gold light. One spirit, tall and regal, spoke with a voice like rustling leaves. "To restore balance, you must pass the trial of spirits. Your hearts will be tested. Only those pure of purpose may proceed." Kai tightened his grip on his gear. "We're ready. We've come this far to see this through." The spirits closed in, and suddenly, each team member found themselves facing their deepest fears and regrets, visions that threatened to overwhelm them. Aelin saw the faces of those she failed to save. Kai confronted memories of past mistakes that haunted him, but together they encouraged one another, pushing through the pain and fear. Finally, the spirits nodded in approval. "You have passed the trial. Plant the seed and let the forest heal." Aelin knelt, placing the glowing seed into the earth. As it touched the soil, a wave of warmth spread through the clearing, and the forest seemed to exhale a breath of relief. As the glowing seed settled into the soil, the forest began to stir. Leaves rustled, and a soft golden light radiated from the ground, spreading outward like a gentle pulse. Aelin stood, eyes wide with awe. "It's happening. The forest is waking." Kai scanned the horizon. "We need to make sure nothing threatens this place now." Suddenly, the spirits that had tested them appeared again, this time with smiles replacing their previous solemnity. The tall spirit spoke. "You have rekindled the balance. But beware, the forest's revival may awaken forces beyond your understanding." A gentle wind swept through the clearing, carrying whispers of gratitude and ancient wisdom. Aelin looked around at her team, faces illuminated by the golden light. "We came here to bring healing, and now the forest itself will protect this balance." Kai nodded. "Our journey isn't over, but this victory is ours." As the team prepared to leave the grove, the forest around them seemed alive, a promise of renewal and protection. After leaving the ancient grove, The team ventured into the Forgotten Valley, a place shrouded in thick mist and eerie silence. The valley was said to be cursed, where many explorers had vanished without a trace. Eileen led cautiously, her senses alert to every sound. This valley. It feels like something is watching us. Kai nodded, checking their gear. Stay close. The mist can deceive even the sharpest eyes. As they moved deeper, the mist thickened and shadows flickered at the edge of their vision. Whispered voices echoed, indistinct but chilling. Suddenly, a dark figure emerged, tall and cloaked in tattered robes, with hollow eyes that seemed to pierce through the fog. "Who dares enter my domain?" the figure hissed, voice echoing like a distant thunder. The team froze. Elin stepped forward, trying to calm the apparition. "We mean no harm. We seek to understand the mysteries here." The figure's eyes glowed red. "Curiosity has led many to doom. Turn back or face the consequences." Before they could react, the mist swirled violently, and the figure vanished. The valley grew colder, and an unnatural silence settled. Kai whispered, "We're not alone here, and the valley won't let us leave easily." The team huddled close as the mist thickened around them, the eerie silence pressing on their nerves. Elin's flashlight barely pierced the gray haze, casting ghostly shadows on the ancient trees. Kai scanned the surroundings, whispering, "There's something out there. We're being watched." Suddenly, from the dense fog, faint figures emerged. Translucent, almost invisible, their eyes glowing faintly like dying embers. The Silent Watchers. Eileen felt a chill run down her spine. They're the spirits of those lost here, trapped between worlds. One watcher floated closer, its form flickering. "Why do you disturb our rest?" "We seek the truth, to lift the curse and bring peace," Eileen replied firmly. The watchers exchanged glances. "Many have tried. Few have succeeded. The valley demands a price." A sudden gust swept the valley, and the watchers vanished. But the team knew this was only the beginning. Kai clenched his fists. "We have to be ready for whatever comes next." The deeper the team ventured into the valley, the heavier the air became, thick with the weight of untold sorrow. At the valley's center lay an ancient altar, carved from black stone etched with cryptic symbols glowing faintly in the dim light. Eileen approached cautiously, sensing the immense power emanating from the altar. "This must be the source of the curse," she whispered. Kai studied the carvings. "These symbols speak of a betrayal, a guardian who turned against the forest, condemning it to darkness." Maya traced her fingers over the stone, feeling a cold energy surge through her. "If we can undo this betrayal, we might break the curse." Suddenly, a low rumble shook the ground. Shadows twisted and coalesced into a massive form. The fallen guardian, a towering figure cloaked in shadow and sorrow. "You dare defy me?" the guardian's voice thundered. "You will join the lost souls trapped here forever." The team braced for battle, knowing this confrontation was the final test to save the valley and themselves. The airs grew heavy with tension as the fallen guardian loomed over the team. Its eyes burned with a mix of anger and sorrow, a tragic force born from betrayal and regret. Eileen stepped forward, voice steady yet compassionate. "We don't seek to destroy you. We want to free you from this torment." The guardian hesitated, its form flickering. "Freedom is a curse I cannot escape." Kai and Maya flanked Eileen, ready to defend but hopeful for peace. "Tell us what we must do." The guardian's shadow stretched, and the valley seemed to pulse with energy. "You must find the heart of the forest and restore the sacred bond broken long ago. Only then will the curse lift." Eileen nodded. "We will try." As the guardian faded into the mist, the team felt a surge of hope. Their journey was far from over, but for the first time, they sensed a path toward salvation. The team moved cautiously through the dense forest, guided only by the faint glow of ancient symbols that Eileen had managed to decipher from the altar. The air was thick with a fragrant mixture of moss, damp earth, and the faint, haunting melody of distant birdsong that seemed almost otherworldly. "This place feels alive," Maya whispered, brushing aside hanging vines that swayed with an unseen breeze. as if the forest itself is watching us. Kai adjusted his pack and glanced around nervously. I don't like it. Ever since the Guardian appeared, it feels like something is lurking just out of sight. Elin nodded. We're close. The heart of the forest is said to be a sacred tree, ancient beyond memory, holding the key to breaking the curse. Hours passed as they trekked deeper, the forest growing darker and more twisted. Strange markings on the trees, similar to those on the altar, guided their way. Occasionally, fleeting glimpses of shadowy figures darted between the trunks. The silent watchers, perhaps, still lingering in the realm between worlds. Suddenly, the ground beneath them trembled. Roots writhed as if alive, twisting to block their path. Elin raised her hand, chanting softly the words she had found inscribed on the altar, hoping to calm the restless spirits bound to the forest. The roots recoiled, revealing a clearing bathed in soft golden light. At its center stood the sacred tree, a towering giant with bark like silver and leaves shimmering like emeralds. Its branches stretched towards the sky, pulsing gently with a mystical energy. Approaching the tree, Elin could feel her heart pounding. This is it, the source of the bond. Kai carefully placed his hand on the tree's bark. Feels warm, alive. Maya began to recite the ritual from the ancient texts, her voice steady despite the weight of the moment. As the words echoed through the clearing, the tree responded, glowing brighter, the forest around them awakening with renewed vigor. But with the ritual's completion came a sudden, chilling whisper carried on the wind. You have awakened the curse's true power. From the shadows, the fallen guardian reappeared, more formidable and enraged than before. You meddle with forces beyond your comprehension. The battle that followed was unlike any before. The team fought not just for survival, but for the soul of the forest itself. Each strike, each spell uttered, was a desperate attempt to restore balance and end the curse once and for all. As dawn broke, the Guardian's form began to waver, the light from the sacred tree overpowering the darkness. With a final, anguished roar, the Guardian vanished, the curse lifting like morning mist. Exhausted but victorious, the team stood in the quiet forest, now bathed in the warm glow of renewal. The silent watchers appeared once more, their faces peaceful, finally free. Elin breathed deeply. We did it. The curse is broken. Kai smiled. And we're still alive to tell the tale. Maya nodded. This is more than an expedition. It's a new beginning. The team knew their journey was over, but the story of the Forbidden Gorge and its secrets would live on. A testament to courage, sacrifice, and the unbreakable bond between humanity and nature. The victory at the sacred tree had been bittersweet. Though the curse was broken, the forest still seemed alive with memories, shadows lingering like echoes of the past. As the team began their journey back toward the outskirts of the forgotten forest, an uneasy silence fell over them. Maya led the way, her eyes scanning the dimming light filtering through the canopy. The forest is grateful, but it won't forget what we've done. Kai tightened his grip on his walking stick. I feel those shadows watching us. We need to move quickly. Elin studied the map again. We're close to the edge, but the path is treacherous. We must stay alert. As they stepped into a narrow ravine, the temperature dropped suddenly. The air thickened and strange whispers brushed against their ears, unintelligible voices that seemed to come from the very shadows themselves. Did you hear that? Whispered Kai, his face pale. It's the forest's way of warning us, Elin replied. We're disturbing something old. The shadows began to shift and swirl, forming vague shapes that flickered like ghostly flames. One by one, faint faces appeared. Former explorers, lost souls trapped by the curse, their eyes pleading for release. Maya's voice trembled as she raised her lantern. We must help them find peace. Elin nodded, pulling from her pack an ancient amulet said to calm restless spirits. Holding it high, she chanted an incantation taught by the village elders. The shadows hesitated, then slowly dissolved into the mist, their sorrowful whispers fading into silence. A calm settled over the ravine. Kai exhaled. That was close. We owe them peace. But as they pressed forward, the ground beneath them cracked. Suddenly, the earth opened in a deep chasm, separating the group. Kai fell into the darkness below with a scream. "Kai!" Maya and Elin shouted, scrambling to the edge. From the depths, a cold wind rose, carrying with it a voice, low, mocking and chilling. "One must stay behind." Maya's heart pounded. "We can't leave him." Elin looked toward the darkness, determination blazing in her eyes. "I'll find a way to get him out. Stay here and keep watch." As Elin prepared to descend into the abyss, the shadows gathered at the edge, whispering warnings and ancient secrets. The final test before freedom. Elin took a deep breath, steadying her nerves before descending into the abyss where Koi had fallen. The air was cold and heavy, filled with the scent of damp earth and decay. She tied a rope around her waist and carefully climbed down the jagged walls of the chasm, every step echoing in the hollow void. Below, Kai struggled to stay conscious. His leg was twisted at an unnatural angle, and pain radiated through his body. Yet, when he saw Elin's lantern shining above, a flicker of hope sparked in his eyes. "Elin, you came back," he whispered, his voice weak. "I won't leave you behind," she replied firmly. "Hold on, I'll get you out." The walls seemed to close in as Elin searched for a safe path, her fingers tracing ancient carvings faintly etched into the rock, symbols of protection and warning. Suddenly, a cold gust blew out her lantern, plunging them into darkness. "Stay calm," Elin urged. "I have a spare." As she relit the lantern, eerie whispers surrounded them again, more urgent and pleading. The shadows moved closer, pressing against the rock like living things. Elin felt their sorrow, but also a desperate warning. The abyss was alive, a living trap that sought to claim them. With great effort, Elin secured the rope around Kai and began the arduous climb back. The shadows flickered and wailed, trying to pull them back into the darkness. "We must resist," Elin said, voice trembling but determined. Step by step they ascended, the rope creaking under their combined weight. When they finally reached the rim, Maya was waiting, tears streaming down her face. "Kai, you're safe," she cried, embracing him. But their relief was short-lived. A sudden rumble shook the earth, and the chasm began to collapse. "Run!" Maya shouted. The team sprinted away as rocks and dust rained down, the forest seemingly swallowing the abyss whole. Panting and shaken, the survivors gathered, united by the trials they had endured. They knew the journey was not yet over, but the bond forged in darkness gave them strength. Elin looked back once more, a silent promise in her heart, to honor those lost and to finish what they had started. The survivors barely had time to catch their breath after escaping the collapsing chasm. The forest around them was eerily silent, as if holding its breath. Elin scanned the dark tree line, uneasy. The ancient carvings and symbols they had seen on the chasm walls weren't just warnings. They were part of a curse. "We disturbed something," Maya said softly, her voice trembling. "Something old, something angry." Kai nodded, wincing as he adjusted his broken leg. "It's not over. This place, it's alive." Suddenly, the ground beneath their feet vibrated. A low rumble began, growing into a deep growl that seemed to rise from the earth itself. The trees swayed violently as dark shadows moved through the undergrowth, taking shape as ghostly figures bound in chains. "Run!" Elin shouted, grabbing Kai's arm. The team scattered, dodging twisting roots that erupted from the soil, attempting to ensnare them. Elin's heart pounded. The forest was awakening, fueled by the souls trapped in the abyss below. The curse wasn't just a legend. It was a force, desperate to break free. The ghostly apparitions pursued relentlessly, their hollow eyes burning with ancient rage. Each step the team took was a battle, fighting not only for survival, but for their sanity. As they fled toward a faint glow ahead, Elin spotted a stone altar, half buried beneath vines and moss. The carvings glowed faintly, revealing a ritual of binding and sacrifice. "This must be the source," Elin said, breathless. "We have to perform the ritual, or we'll never escape." Maya and Kai helped Elin prepare the altar, using the remaining artifacts from their expedition. Time was running out. The spirits closed in with deafening wails. With trembling hands, Elin recited the ancient incantation. The wind howled and the ground trembled as light exploded from the altar, engulfing the forest in a radiant glow. The ghostly figures screamed, their chains shattering as they dissolved into the ether. The forest gradually fell silent, the oppressive weight lifting. Exhausted but alive, the team collapsed near the altar. The curse was broken, but at a cost none could yet understand. Elin vowed to uncover the truth behind the Forbidden Gorge, ensuring no one else would suffer the same fate. As dawn broke over the forest edge, the survivors gathered around the glowing altar one last time. The forest's oppressive darkness had lifted, replaced by an almost palpable sense of peace. Yet the memories of what they had endured clung tightly. Elin sat quietly, her mind racing. The curse was broken, but what about the unexplained markings and ancient scripts they'd found deeper within the gorge? She sensed there was more. A story untold, a history buried beneath centuries of silence. Kai, though weak, smiled faintly. "We survived because we never gave up. The gorge tested us, but it couldn't break us." Maya nodded. "But the question remains. Why was this place cursed? What terrible event happened here long ago?" Before they could ponder further, a soft glow appeared from the altar's core. The light morphed into an ethereal figure, a woman cloaked in white, her eyes gentle but sorrowful. "I am Elara," the spirit spoke, "guardian of this land and keeper of its history. Long ago, my people lived here in harmony until greed and betrayal tore us apart. The curse was born from their suffering, a binding force to protect the sacred." Elin listened intently, sensing the weight of Elara's words. "There is hope," the spirit continued, "for those who seek to heal, not to conquer. You have broken the chains, but true peace comes from understanding and respect." The group exchanged glances, feeling a shift within themselves. They had come seeking mystery, but found a lesson on humility and redemption. Elara's form began to fade, but before she vanished, she placed a glowing orb in Elin's hands. "This light will guide you," she said. "Use it wisely to share the truth and protect what remains." As the spirit disappeared, the team knew their journey was far from over. The expedition had ended, but a new mission awaited: to become guardians of the gorge's story, ensuring its dark past became a beacon of hope for the future. The team departed the Forbidden Gorge with heavy hearts and minds overflowing with the revelations granted by Elara's spirit. The path back through the dense forest was quieter now, the air lighter, but an unspoken tension remained, a burden of knowledge that few outside could understand. Elin led the group, the glowing orb cradled carefully in her hands. It was not merely a light source, it symbolized their responsibility. They were no longer just explorers, but custodians of a fragile legacy. As they trekked through the wilderness, memories of lost companions haunted their steps. Each death had been a painful lesson, warnings from the past manifesting in the present. The team had learned to listen, to respect the land and its stories, but also to trust each other implicitly. Kai, now recovering slowly, spoke during a rare moment of calm. "We have a duty to share what we've uncovered, but carefully. The world isn't ready for some truths." Maya nodded solemnly. "Yes, if we misuse this knowledge, the curse might awaken again." The journey home was filled with quiet conversations and reflective silences. They vowed to honor the spirits, the land, and each other. But a nagging question lingered. Would the outside world heed their warnings, or would greed and ignorance doom the gorge to darkness once more? Elin glanced at the orb, its gentle glow pulsing softly. Their adventure was ending, but their real work was just beginning. As the team descended from the dense forest into the misty highlands, a heavy fog rolled in, swallowing the landscape in a thick, swirling gray. The air was cool and damp, and an eerie silence settled over them. The oppressive stillness was broken only by the crunch of their boots on the soft earth and the occasional distant call of a bird. Elin held the glowing orb high, casting an otherworldly light that barely penetrated the dense fog. The group stayed close together, their senses heightened. They had survived the horrors of the Forbidden Gorge, but the land still held secrets, perhaps darker ones waiting to be unveiled. Suddenly, a chilling whisper brushed past their ears, seeming to come from nowhere and everywhere at once. It was the faintest of voices, a lament that echoed through the mist. Maya froze, her eyes wide with fear. "Did you hear that?" she whispered. Kai nodded grimly. "This place, it's alive with something ancient. We're not out of danger yet." As they pressed forward, shapes began to emerge in the fog. Fleeting glimpses of shadowy figures watching from the trees, ghostly silhouettes moving just beyond their vision. The team's nerves frayed, the line between reality and nightmare blurring. Elin's heart pounded as she realized that their journey home might be even more perilous than the expedition itself. The spirits of the highlands were restless, and the secrets of the gorge had awakened a darkness that would not easily be silenced. In the midst of the swirling mist, the team understood that their greatest challenge was not behind them, it was just beginning. The team reached the edge of the misty highlands just as the first light of dawn pierced through the thick fog. The eerie silence was replaced by a tense anticipation. They knew that the final barrier separating them from safety was just ahead, but it was guarded by the darkness they had unwillingly stirred. Elin clutched the glowing orb tightly, feeling its warmth pulse through her veins. The orb's light cut through the mist, revealing a jagged stone altar etched with ancient runes. The air crackled with energy, and shadows seemed to writhe around the altar like living creatures. "We must close the gateway," Elin said firmly, her voice steady despite the fear clawing at her chest. "It's the only way to stop the curse from spreading beyond the gorge." Kai stepped forward, carrying an ancient dagger they had found in the ruins. "The legends say this blade can sever the link between worlds," he explained. Maya and the others formed a protective circle around Elin and Kai. The team felt the weight of their mission like never before. One wrong move could doom them all. As they began the ritual, dark shapes emerged from the mist, twisted spirits desperate to maintain their hold. The battle was fierce, a clash of wills between the living and the cursed dead. Elin's voice rose in a chant, the orb glowing brighter with every word. The dagger struck the altar, and a blinding light exploded, shattering the shadows and sealing the gateway. When the light faded, the fog began to lift, and the oppressive darkness receded. Exhausted but victorious, the team knew they had broken the curse, but the scars of their journey would remain forever. With the first light of day breaking through the receding mist, the team finally descended from the misty highlands. Exhausted but alive, they carried with them not only the weight of their losses, but the hope of a new beginning. The villagers who had anxiously awaited their return gathered at the edge of the forest, their faces a mixture of relief and sorrow. Among them was Elder Marin, the village's wise woman, who had warned the team of the dangers, but also believed in their courage. As the team shared their story of the cursed gorge, the restless spirits, and the harrowing battles, the villagers listened in reverent silence. The dark shadow that had long haunted their home was lifted, replaced by a fragile peace. Elin held the glowing orb once more, now dimmed but no less precious. "This journey changed us all," she said softly. "But it also gave us a chance to heal." Kai added, "The curse is broken, but we must remember the lessons of the past. Respect the land, honor the spirits, and never forget the sacrifices made." Maya smiled faintly, looking at the sunrise. "We survived the darkness together, and now we can rebuild." As the village began to stir with renewed life, the team knew that their ordeal had ended, but their bond, forged in the crucible of fear and hope, would last forever. The misty highlands stood silent behind them, its secrets kept once more. But now, protected by those who dared to face the shadows and bring the dawn. As the echoes of the doomed finally fade into silence, we are left with a haunting reminder. Some mysteries are better left untouched, and some journeys should never be taken. But through darkness and despair, a fragile light of hope remains. The survivors carry the stories, the warnings, and the courage to face the unknown once more. Thank you for joining this expedition into the shadows. Until we meet again, stay curious, but beware the whispers in the dark.